The importance of production design can't be underestimated at all on Femme Nikita, because it was really where the show began in terms of trying to take the show away from the look of the movie into creating a new world for the television show.
Nikita happened as essentially one script that was transitioning from a movie idea into a television idea. But the characters themselves and their physical locales were a work in progress.
Production designer is involved in every single thing you see. Now, that might not sound like much, but think about looking at that picture. Every prop, every piece of wardrobe, every single thing, every color is chosen by Rocco. And those are things that are very important in the overall look.
Typically, the production designer is fundamentally a set designer, creating and responsible for the environments of the picture. So all the places and all of the sets that the show will take place in.
And in fact, what people don't realize is that the production designer also affects the script. Especially if they're writing anything futuristic, if they're writing a machine that's supposed to suck something out of your brain, for example, they just do that. They virtually write, there's a machine that has to suck something out of your brain. Someone has to design this thing.
You could write something, but how it translates to screen, I mean, that's what Rocco brought to the table. Rocco really made that world come to life.
The first person I hired on the show was Rocco Matteo, and the first thing we did was try to create a world that was unique.
When they came to me with the show, my first question to them was, do you want this to look like something else you've seen? Or do you want to try to define a whole new look?
We were always trying to give a different look to keep people off balance. We decided we were never going to have mundane sets and mundane looks to the show.
Joel always gave him the freedom to sort of just, take that extra step, go a little further. And because he did that, I think is why the show looks like it looks.
The theme of the show was thinking differently, and that's what Rocco brought to the table. And we knew that Rocco would just design something that was just out of the ordinary.
My first direction to them was to describe how much they wanted to rely on conventional character details, like their favorite furniture and their pictures and their mementos, or if I could keep it minimal. We wanted to make it clear right away that these people are ghosts, they're ciphers. So it's really hard to pin an identity on them which is made up of conventional things.
What we wanted to do is create a semi-futuristic look for the show, and that was all driven by production design.
Rocco talked about it as if it were 10 minutes into the future, and I remember the writers and producers, we talked about it as if it was 2 inches to the left of the present.
Rocco said from the very beginning that we don't have to have any paper in section 1. And as soon as he said it, it just made such great sense.
At first, I remember the first year, it was a real challenge because you couldn't just pass a note. I mean, you had to really figure out how people were going to give things to each other in this paperless world of section.
Rocco and our locations people really found tremendous locations in Toronto to cover the world.
They knew Toronto so well that they could almost look at a page instantaneously, tell you exactly what street corner we should film this on.
I mean, you would write something in Kara, you would write Tokyo, and Rocco didn't blink.
We did one episode that was supposed to be Paris, and we CGI'd a shot of the Eiffel Tower, and Toronto is a cosmopolitan city. It wasn't really hard to mock up some street cafes with the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Because we were an international show and we went everywhere, he had to be very knowledgeable in what the signage was, what the people wore, what things looked like, what the vehicles were. All of those things were all under his umbrella.
You'd go down to the set, and for a moment, if you close your eyes and open them, you would think you were in whatever country we were supposed to be in that week.
I told my crew, I really need you to be fearless because we need to find the kinds of places that the writers want to write about. We need places that were out of bounds to civilians, whether it be like power plants and major water filtration treatment places, abandoned subway tunnels, and we would somehow find a way to get into them.
Let's take the audience to places that they couldn't go in their everyday life, and that's the world Nikita has to go to, and we get to go into this world with her.
Section 1 was more of a symbol and a metaphor for the whole underworld of the spy world as it was a physical place.
It absolutely felt real. I had always wondered if there was a place that really existed like this, and when I walked on the set, you almost felt you were walking into a real place, into a place that was this covert agency.
It was the perfect combination of technology, space, freedom to move, and even little cubicles that constrained you when you wanted to be constrained.
If you looked at the initial sketches and diagrams of Section, it was overlapping circles, like throwing a rock into a pond and watching the circles come back and forth, overlapping and radiating from a central point. And that's how that place evolved over the years.
Section 1, and I still say to today, is probably one of the best sets I've ever shot in as a director. It was incredibly deep. It had a lot of depth to it.
I wanted it to be big and cavernous and open, yet it suggests lots of hidden areas. And when you have an open floor plan like that, it can be very boring to shoot. I mean, if you end up in wide angles and you don't have any foreground. So what we were very careful is that there was lots of foreground elements that you could shoot through to get to people. So again, foregrounds were very important in the show once you got down into the sets where you were actually doing a lot of business.
When we built the first spaces, I literally built them in the center of our studio space and left room all around it so that I could plug in and add other spaces to it.
Year by year, we kept building corridors and hallways and other rooms and prisons, but never did he lose the texture and the design of what he started out to do, and it just got better.
Nikita's apartment was a joint venture between Rocco and Peta, because Peta took it personally. I mean, this was the space that her character was going to be identified with. This was her private persona.
I always thought that the apartment worked more symbolically than realistically. So as I had hinted in the first season that the strong-willed nature of Nikita as a person would act out a certain evolution in her space.
If you watch her apartment, it's really interesting to see it grow with the character, and Rocco was always very aware of that.
When he worked, he was always like focused in like a laser beam on the thing that he was creating. And he was very serious about it.
Every morning I'd come in and go, and I'd usually call him and go, Rocco, you did it again. I don't know how you did it, but this looks unbelievable. And then it was, a pleasure to shoot.
I think we sometimes tried to challenge him by creating environments that we thought could not be pulled off, but he did it. Rocco was able to pull it off.
If you look at it today, it still stands up. I don't think there's a single show where you go, oh, look how dated that looks. And it's been off the air now for a while.
You can't talk about Femme Nikita without talking about a few key people. And prominent among them is Rocco Matteo. I mean, he really delivered a mood and an atmosphere in every famous film that we shot. His fingerprint was all over it.